In 1914, at the beginning of World War I, V.I. Lenin, the future leader of the Soviet Union, then living in exile, urged Russian soldiers to turn your weapons on your leaders who sent you down into the murderous trenches. Wow, think about that. That the people on the bottom should turn on the people at the top. 3 years later, in 1917, that's exactly what happened after Russia had suffered nearly 10 million casualties, resulting in mass destruction of their cities and countryside that produced 6 million refugees. The soldiers in the trenches finally determined our interests are not those of our rulers and walked away, ending the war on the Eastern Front. Today, Semillas, a think tank and action center, is urging America's working class to basically do the same thing, metaphorically that is, in a symbolic sense, since I don't want to get arrested for inciting violence. We need to turn against our own leaders who hoist war and debt onto the population. America needs a divorce between its working class and its ruling class.
Semillas Community Center is a working class think tank and action center. We have a plan, sowing the seeds of transformation.
We need to turn against our own leaders who hoist war and debt onto the population. America needs a divorce between its working class and its ruling class. In part one of this four-part series, entitled A Path Forward, Semillas put forward what we see as a problem confronting America's working class. And as a think tank, we put forward what we feel our role is in helping to guide this path. We propose 3 areas of focus to move forward: independent political action, alternative economic development, and creating a base for spiritual, moral reawakening. Today, we focus on the need for independent political action. Semillas' motto is Independiente, which stems from a basic principle that our interests as workers are often diametrically opposite the rulers, the 1% who own and run everything here in the United States. It is the ruling class who accumulates ever-increasing shares of wealth in a winner-take-all system, while we get stuck with the bill. In our previous episode, we pointed out, for instance, that with a national debt of $39 trillion, that adds up to $375,000 in debt for every taxpayer in the United States. Now tell me, do you happen to have $375,000 that you're willing to donate to this debt? And with the off-the-books unofficial debt at actually 5 times more, vital programs like Social Security and Medicare could vanish in less than 10 years. In addition, our states, cities, and school districts are also in the same predicament, going broke. We are at a crossroads today. Creating political independence is necessary in order for us to survive. Just look at our current situation. With over 90% of Americans against foreign interventions and war, just who gave our leaders the authority to smash and destroy another sovereign nation and risk the lives of our sons and daughters? Who gave you the right to start a war when the American people are adamantly against it? And now they're demanding an extra $200 billion in immediate funds to pay for the damage they created. The American working class needs to divorce its ruling class over irreconcilable differences. They benefit from massive expenditures for war, funding for bombs, ships, missiles. And now President Trump wants an additional massive increase of $1.5 trillion for next year's war budget for more destruction. This does not benefit the working class. The growing national debt is making everything more expensive. Part of the rising cost of living for us all, and we simply cannot survive. See what Semillas is advocating, that only by eliminating massive government debt that includes war and many other wasteful expenditures will we be able to survive. That's why Semillas advocates that a negotiated peace treaty among all the major nations is something we should demand of our ruling classes. This would lead to a massive reduction in conventional and nuclear armaments on the part of all the major powers. This would finance an economic regeneration, not only of our nation, but for the entire world. This is the swords to plowshares policy that we advocate, where we pull our tax dollars out of the war economy to finance a new America. And that requires taking the dominant 1% out of control. This is absolutely essential. But how is that possible? They own and run everything, and that includes most of our politicians inside the Democratic and Republican parties. There is no distinction between the two parties, war and debt, for the past 65 years. That means that a fundamental roadblock to our proposal lies in the two parties that run our government. One is the party of the rich and powerful, and the other is also the party of the rich and powerful. Republican and Democratic parties are two faces of the same coin, and America's working class needs to come to terms with this reality. Politically, this requires detachment from these two predominant parties, and while starting a third political party is not practical now, there are steps that we can all take to advance working people's interests. First and foremost, there's a very simple thing that you can do to put our leaders on notice immediately. Re-register as an independent or nonpartisan voter and send your local representatives a message telling them that you cannot trust them and you're becoming independent. Independent status puts them on notice that they should not take your vote for granted. And as part of Independiente, we must declare that we will not vote for candidates funded by the 1%, by the warmongers. No votes for candidates supporting more wars and expanding debt. This sends the political class a strong message, not just at the federal level, but at the state and local levels as well. That wasteful government spending at all levels has raised the cost of living for working families to a point where we can no longer survive. Following that, we have to lower the cost of government at all levels, and that means defunding the many other industrial complexes that operate alongside the military-industrial complex. What are these industrial complexes? Former President Dwight D. Eisenhower warned of the military-industrial complex in 1959 in his final speech as he left office. He warned us about how these things get established with opportunistic, very powerful people taking control of the military budget. And that's what we have today. That's why we have constant war for their profit. But now, these other industrial complexes dominate most major spending today. They are essentially big Ponzi schemes where billions of our tax dollars go into the pockets of the financial oligarchy and their co-conspirators, the politicians. You'll find these industrial complexes everywhere. In California, for instance, the government regulation complex makes everything like housing much more expensive. The healthcare industrial complex. The average cost of insuring a family of four today is $27,000. Then there's the homeless industrial complex. Governor Newsom recently had a press conference where he pointed out that $28 billion had been expended for the care of the homeless, but there was nothing to show but failure, corruption, and theft. There's the entitlements welfare industrial complex, and then the educational industrial complex. California, for instance, today has 600,000 fewer students in school than in 2020. But the budget for those same students has grown from $70 billion in 2020 to $137.6 billion today, almost a 200% increase in cost. Yet educational performance indicators for our kids have never been worse. And what about the transportation industrial complex? We have a $100 billion bullet train to nowhere program, $50 billion in recent LA County investments for trains that people do not use. Massive expenditures are just a waste of our money. Even at our city and school board levels, bond debt has increased to exponential levels that may require defaults and bankruptcy in the near future. We have to rationalize all of these things, yet look at your ballot. Government at all levels are telling you we need more taxes, we need more money. Semillas' slogan is Independiente. They always tell us they're going broke and need more taxes. We say stop spending in the first place. We say just say no to new spending because we are broke and we do not accept the idea that we can tax our way out of this. And here, Semillas needs to make an important distinction. Semillas is different from the populism advocated by Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Mandami, the Democratic Socialist mayor in New York. They're telling you specifically that more government, more spending is needed. No, we're telling you less government, because government is part of the problem. That working class people must be able to create substitutes for government programs, because more government makes us more oppressed and more in debt. Again, the key is to lower our cost of living, otherwise we cannot survive. We have an emergency here. The interests of our families and communities have been betrayed by the 1% who exported our jobs overseas to China and are bankrupting us through war and debt. Semillas Independiente is a call for action. Metaphorically speaking, we need a warrior caste to step forward to defend working class interests in this battle between good and evil. A new generation of community defenders must rise to meet the demands of our time and to spread the gospel. The word gospel means good news, and the good news here is that the American working class has the ability to turn this whole mess around and make positive change for everyone, not just for the rich and powerful. The good news is that we are on the verge of a great awakening. Now, worldwide, due to our modern communications and production tools, where we can now realize the goals proclaimed by past religions and philosophies. And again, Semillas, Seedlings, wants to work with you directly to help make this happen. We have vast experience up from the grassroots community action, and we want to actively work with you to help in your own efforts at home. So let's get going. We've got a lot of work to do. First, decouple from the two-party system. Change your party registration to independent status, and tell your former party not to rely on your vote. Then, help create a voters' framework in your region. No votes for candidates that support the war budget and continued expansion of debt and taxes. No votes for candidates backed by the warmongers. With modern-day technology, we should be able to scrutinize candidates far better and create basic standards for voting. We need to invent a system where we can get working-class candidates elected by bypassing our current system where the cost of campaigns are so ridiculous that only candidates supported by the rich and special interests can get elected. Maybe on a regional level, we can create the beginnings of a third political party. What's your opinion? What do you think we could do? We want to hear about what you're doing. And remember, Semillas advocates that the most valuable level of political contention right now is at your local level of municipal and school district governance. Here is where we can make an immediate impact if we come together and try. So this effort can immediately begin with you in your neighborhood spreading the gospel of positive community change. That change is necessary. That change is possible. The good news is that there are many, many common working people like us everywhere, and we need to reach out, educate, and inform, encourage new leadership, and create the new methods and institutions required to change our society. That's what Semillas, Seedlings, is here to do, and we look forward to working closely with you. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, contact us, financially support our work, and until next time, from Semillas, believe in the good news.